Thank you. Welcome, welcome, IITAP community. My name is Robin Reber. I'm the admissions director at White River Academy. White River is a full-time therapeutic boarding school that treats young men between the ages of 12 and 18 that have a wide range of difficulties. Following White River's recently sponsored IITAP Module 3, we received a massive response from all of you regarding your willingness to help us find resources for youth that are graduating from White River and also that perhaps need something more local, whether that was before coming here or maybe they can't come here, and certainly we're looking for those resources once they leave White River. We decided to offer webinars which help us quickly connect with you within your busy schedules. We are seeing pornography, the new world of social media and instant access, creating serious difficulties with children that are trying to move through their developmental milestones. 95% of the youth we currently have at White River report intense difficulties with pornography. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. We've invited Julie Nielsen to give us a boots on the ground viewpoint as a mother who has experienced this issue firsthand with her own children. I hope you will not only hear her and the things she's learned, but also listen to the struggle that she had finding effective treatment. Julie is a mother of 6 and a grandmother of 14. She's a black belt and a partner of White Tiger Martial Arts in Delta, Utah. She's dedicated her time to working with and teaching families, parents, teens, and young adults in this arena. Julie is a past member of the Utah Coalition Against Pornography Advisory Board and a current member of the Safeguard Alliance, a group of national leaders who are preparing young people to grow up free from pornography. Julie and her daughter have given presentations throughout Utah on how to protect families from the dangers of pornography. And we're tapping into that resource of taking her national through the blessing of the internet. From all of us as a team on the front lines, listening to hundreds of parents every month pleading for resources for their family, I can't stress enough how grateful we are to you, the work you do, and the dedication you put into your clients and their families. We need you. We thank you and are confident this information will inspire you to find even more ways to help the rising generation. Julie, take it away.
Okay, this is kind of like what I'm feeling right now, other than I'd probably think there might be a few sharks out there in that water. I'm honored, but I'm a little nervous to be speaking to a group of counselors and therapists. The most important part, the most important line in my bio is that of being a mother. So I'm a mom of 6 amazing kids, and I have great relationships with all of my children. They're all out of the home by now, which has helped me in presentations because they're able to help me stay up with culture changes. They try out my filters, they try out software, and they've even taught with me, despite some of their struggles that they've had with technology. So 25 years ago, my 8-year-old found a pornographic magazine on the ground. Well, during that year at school, one of his classmates challenged him to look up sex.com on the family computer. Now you have to remember that this is before we realized that there were any problems with pornography and with the internet. This was early time before parents or anyone was really being warned. So 5 years later, 1992, I went to a conference that taught me how to check my history on my computer. And when I went home, I found out that we had pornography on our computer. This young man, he had been trying to get up the guts to talk to me about it, but he hadn't been able to get it. So for the next several years, we tried several avenues of counseling. We talked and we cried, and I went to conference after conference trying to get information to help my family. It wasn't till probably 10 years later, maybe even longer than that, that I went to a conference in Utah called the Utah Coalition Against Pornography. where some presenters actually presented some information that helped me as a mother, and that helped me to realize some of the avenues that we had been going down weren't the best idea, or encouraged me to do some things that would have been better. So when I came home from those conferences, I started taking my older daughter with me to those conferences, and we'd come home and we'd talk to neighbors and friends, and they didn't understand anything about their kids' technology. And so parents were just being blindsided, as I had been. So we put together a presentation that we have taken throughout our state. Now, I'm not looking for praise or prejudice because of that. Most of this movement, most of the education that has been coming out about a digital life has been coming from parents. It's been led by parents and ex-addicts through blogs and podcasts and presentations like ours. And we're still learning and trying to share what we learn. So one of the things that I've said constantly since we started on this journey, because he's not the only son that got involved with pornography, and he's not the only one that had problem with technology, that I just kept saying there were not enough of you guys. There were not enough counselors and therapists that were trained and had information about what was going on in this digital world. So I'm just going to share with you a part of my presentation. I want you to just see some of the things that I thought were really important for families to understand, what was really important for me to understand while we were on this journey. So kids can be, being a kid can really be hard today. I have this like love-hate relationship with technology. Growing up and parenting has been much harder for me with my last 3 children who had technology, cell phones, than it was for my first 3. None of my children got cell phones until after they were 14. But I was a responsible parent, and I, tried to do the best I could. But although they should be celebrating their youth and enjoying their great worth, many of our kids are really questioning their self-worth, and they're struggling with the world around them. I found this good because WALL-E, I don't know, many of you probably remember this movie years ago. WALL-E was a robot, and humans built this robot to do their work for them. But then living in this virtual world made them slaves to technology, and it's the humans that became disposable, not the robots. And I think in many ways, we're seeing our youth become slaves to technology. Studies are confirming that we're shrinking our brains with the overuse of technology. Neuroscience is beginning to find people who are acting like they have head injuries when they don't have a head injury. They're seeing mental illness, such as psychosis and dementia, develop due to the overuse of technology. Science recommends a maximum of 2 hours of leisure screen time. Yet kids are connected to technology 9 to 11 hours every single day. By the time they're in high school, by the time these high schoolers are my age, they will have spent 20 years in front of screens. So we can kind of joke about WALL-E, but maybe it really isn't such a joke. This is my question. So can we quit connecting with our bodies and still be okay? We've given over arithmetic to calculators, spelling to spell check, writing to predicted text, navigation to Google, emotions to emojis, communication to text, love and relationships to pornography. What happens to those parts of the brain that did those things, where connections were never built? It's interesting, we've seen a paradox. South Korea spent $5 billion connecting their country to the internet, achieving a 90% penetration rate. Being the most connected country in the world, they've also had a campaign not too long ago that was called 1 and 1. Shut off your phone for 1 hour, 1 day of the week. This generation has been part of the largest social experiment ever done. At a time when they're laying the foundation for the rest of their lives, we've basically handed them a phone with little guidance and given untethered access to all of the adult world, to all social expression, comparing, bullying, predators, pornography, and the development of mental illness, with a device that is nearly impossible to monitor. Just to show you the depth of the problem here, we have 7.5 billion people in this world. There's over 5 billion unique mobile phone users. That is 1.5 billion more people than have running water. This is an adult and parent problem, as we want to give our kids everything that everyone else has because we think it's going to make them happy. But it's a problem that kids are being left to fix because parents don't understand the technology like them. Cell phones and technology have been their world. Will they be able to see the problems and will they be able to seek intervention? I don't know. Many in this group have decided that it's okay not to be okay because they don't feel okay. Many also in this group have decided everyone not okay, so they also better not be okay. Being okay, not being okay is really a popular thing. So let's look at smartphone owners. Smartphone owners check their phones an average of 47 times a day. Some check their phones 300 to 800 times a day. This Generation Z, the iGen generation, watches an average of 68 videos every day. More than half of the teens say they spend too much time on their phones, many thinking they're addicted, and 28% of them think their parents are addicted because they're carrying these cell phones 9 to 11 hours every day. It gives them very little time for any real conversation. Studies show that cell phones fragment our attention and permanently reduce our ability to concentrate. Gates, who's one of the richest men in the world, has think weeks. In these weeks, he does nothing but think and read. And interestingly enough, a big part of families that are living in Silicon Valley and who work in Silicon Valley have all but banned technology in their homes, and many go to non-technology schools. There is a digital gap between the rich and the poor, but most people would not guess which group has the more digital life. So nearly a half of all children have a social media profile by age 2. This is a problem that they didn't create, and they're the ones that are left hung out to dry. So what I'm seeing is we're not looking like this, but we're looking more like the world like this. We're giving up communication, interaction, and relationship. Not long ago, I was in a restaurant when a father brought his young baby in. The baby was in an infant carrier, and they sat down on the restaurant for the father to eat. As soon as he sat down, he pulled out his cell phone. And the child was content for a little while, but pretty soon he wanted some attention, and so he started making some noise and acting out and started to yell and really trying to get his dad's attention. But the father just put his foot on the infant carrier and rocked the carrier and rocked it harder and harder and never did look down at the child one time during that whole time the child was crying out. Finally, the dad just got up and grabbed his infant carrier and left. A 2014 study said a third of people use their phone at lunch with their kids. Many parents just hand the device to a baby to calm them. Oxytocin, which is commonly called the love hormone, is released as a child nurses and is calmed by their parent. Well, it is also released while being entertained by a device, and it actually makes them fall in love with their phone instead of their parent who should be calming them. So when they grow up, where do they turn to for coping skills? Will they go to their moms for a hug, or will they just want to turn on YouTube? It is recommended that young children have zero technology time. Babies form bonds. They learn about the world and develop language in part from eye-to-eye contact. Kids do not know that they have poor coping skills until they have to do something really hard, like go to college or get a new job or balance their checkbook without mom or dad helping them. You can ask any kid what their life would be like if they lost a device today. Oxytocin have made the kids fall in love with their devices, and dopamine has kept them connected. It has been the cause of suicide and murder. Colin Kirchner, who is another parent advocate, who is opposed to giving kids smartphones, is also opposed to taking the cell phone away cold turkey because of the number of suicides and suicide attempts because of losing their cell phone. We had a young man that his father just posted a story about him getting a monitor for Christmas for some computer games he was playing. He was one of the top Fortnite players for his age group. Well, he got mad and he threw his controller and broke his monitor. And his parents worked with him, and so he saved and he bought another one. Well, this time he broke his monitor again, throwing his device at his controller at it. But this time, as a 12-year-old, he went and hung himself in his closet. So what I'm seeing is we're moving from this social interaction into this gaming. You all know the symptom. You all know what dementia is. Symptoms include memory loss, mood changes, and problems with communicating and reasoning. Doctors and therapists are talking about something termed digital dementia. The problem is normally dementia affects people who are older, but digital dementia is happening to kids. One therapist told us a story about a 17-year-old patient of his who was showing signs of dementia. He would get in his car and start driving and then have to pull over because he had no idea where he was going and he would panic. So if we do not build the connections in our brain by age 26, math connections, English connections, connections on empathy and gratitude, it becomes more and more difficult for us to build those connections. Not only are we giving up brain function because we are making Siri and Alexa figure out everything for us, the posture that we take when we use a device ends up blocking the proper flow of blood from our heart up our spinal cord and to our brains, causing actual brain damage. 41% of teenage boys say they spend too much time playing video games. That is almost the boys in the country. Our brain does not know the difference between reality and virtual reality. If you played a game over like the one I've got here, and you're an avatar and you were going to the Sistine Chapel and got familiar with the Sistine Chapel, then later actually went through it, you would be able to recognize those things in the Sistine Chapel. Prince Harry said he was so good with his helicopter because he trained on video games. Police and military, driver's ed, and other things train with video games. The brain doesn't care if it is reality. What are we training for? A zombie apocalypse, some kids say. 2 kids here in Utah spent a lot of time playing Fortnite. They got angry with each other over something stupid like who ate the last banana. It quickly escalated into using weapons like Fortnite. Both boys received multiple stab wounds, and one of the boys was nearly killed when he was stabbed just a millimeter away from a main artery. Both lost a lot of blood. There are more severe cases. Those who lose connection with the real world and basically become a part of the game. They're the ones that leave the house and are freaked out when the trees that they see along the side of the road are not square. I work at a university. We had a young man who came in and wanted to know if we taught a class on fairies. He had 2 children. Both of his children had fairy names from his games. Digital psychosis is real. There are many gamers who spend 16 hours a day, live in their mom's basement, no friend, no apartment, no life, and therefore they have developed no skills, no way to cope, no strategies for success, no talents, can't self-regulate, and their muscles are atrophied. Japan's having a real hard time getting young people married, as the guys no longer want to and the girls really don't want them. Gaming and digital addiction have been designated a mental disorder. The World Health Organization revised their types of disease list for the first time in 28 years to include behavioral addiction. Kids are being hospitalized due to the lack of exercise and movement and mental disorder. They're struggling with ADHD, involuntary reflexes related to the way they play video games, aggression, moods disorders, and psychosis. There was a 2011 study that said 97% of all American kids between the age of 2 and 17 play video games. That's 64 million kids. BYU just released a study that said 90% of gamers do not have negative long-term consequences. I am curious to know the consequences they were looking at, but many of these games online cause, or not even online, many of these games cause problems that harm besides addiction. I want to give you the example of 3 different games. Fortnite, which was one of the most important or popular games right now, is a game to kill other players. It is violent, but it is cartoon violent. It has cries of pain, but the language that is rampant throughout this game, because you're talking with other players, is harsher than anything that you would see in a school setting. It's street vulgarity. Soldier of the Future, one of the most violent games, is about dismemberment, limbs torn from your torso. Rolling Stones magazine said, if you're hankering for exploding heads or body stumps, this is the game for you. Grand Theft Auto, which is a very popular game, you kill cops and civilians and you're able to rape. There's not much limit in gaming. Beating hookers after having sex with them, violence, gore, acts of torture, a lot of racism, and over-the-top lewdness. They may never be addicted, but it's affecting a lot of their relationships. And I'm being asked and told about them constantly. We're going from this to this. Kids have 2,000 friends on Facebook, but no real connectivity. They haven't looked in the face, smelt their cologne, felt the touch, read their body language, or spoken to them, nor could they recognize most of their 2,000 friends' voice if they were to call. Kids today have literally grown up with technology embedded in their everyday life, and it's impacting their basic understanding of their engagement with the world. We are connecting with our device, and it makes us think that we are making real connections. In a book titled The American Girl by Nancy Jo Sells, she interviewed girls throughout the country. And a lot of what she said I was familiar with because I've been involved with this for such a long time. But this line stood out to me. She said, this is the first time all girls have been doing the same thing at the same time. They're all watching the same cat video. They're seeing the same news stream. They're seeing all things in common. So much of social media is fake that it is causing kids to be fake. They're putting likes on things they don't really care about, and they're taking pictures and posting it of something that looked more fun than it really was. They're thinking about what they're going to post rather than living in the moment. They're looking at how to set up the best moment to capture and share, and therefore no real memories of events are made. The degree of cruelty that goes across social media is unbelievable. One of my daughters, when she was about 11 years old, had an iPod. I didn't really understand enough about it again. I didn't know that she could be contacted through Messenger. And she was having a really difficult time, and it took me a while to figure out and find out really what it was. And when I looked at her phone to see some of the messages that she'd been getting, they were terrible. One young man was telling her just to go kill herself, that she wasn't worthy of anything, that she was worthless, that she was a terrible person. Influencers and media are trying to make money, and the fake and the excessive drives the idea that we're never enough, that kids are never enough. They need Botox, body sculpting, lash extensions, eyebrow slits, pedicures, manicures, vacations, this brand, this diet, or this new trend, or these new things in their house. Everything's a game. Studies show that social media lowers impulse control. Social media is a toxic enabler of the desire to compare, comparing your normal average day to someone's perfect artificial day. There's more tolerance for sexual violence. Kids are lonelier than any previous generation. They post their very saddest moments and get an emoji, which was quickly forgotten by their friends. Nothing will deflate confidence and self-esteem quicker than social media. And does social media make us happy? So this chart compares some of the popular apps. and how happy people are and the amount of time that they're using them. The more time spent on social media, the less happy we become. The more connected we are to real people, the happier we are. As you can see down at the bottom, FaceTime has a 91% happiness rate, because that is where you actually connect, can see and hear a person. Fear and despair taking over. Suicide has gone up 140% here in Utah. There are 2 suicide attempts in the 10 to 17-year-old age group every single day. I was in a workshop on depression, and I asked the counselor what was the #1 things parents could do to help their kid who is struggling with suicidal thoughts. He said to turn their phone off for 3 hours a week. Studies on this iGen generation show that they're the most depressed, stressed out generation of all time. Some of the countries are starting to catch on. France recently outlawed cell phones from public schools, and we're seeing more and more of our schools that are following the same suit as problems have arisen. So there was an article in our newspaper about this 16-year-old boy. He was the president of the Honor Society, an undefeated wrestler, great survival skills. He had 50-mile backpacking adventures under his belt. He was religious, was everything to live for, but he committed suicide. This is one of those, this is not my kid. My kid wouldn't do that story where I've been before. No substance was found in his system. He came from a good home, good family life. And so his parents wanted to share the story so other parents could be familiar with what was happening. When detectives went through his cell phone, they found that a phone number had texted their son over 1,000 times. When they dug deeper, they found an app that was downloaded on his phone. Someone from the Ivory Coast, posing as a female, had encouraged him to send an explicit photo. And then they used this photo to blackmail him, telling them that they would show his family and friends. They wanted money, and he sent him money, and after that was over, they just told him he should go kill himself, he should end his life, he had ruined it. For if he hadn't ruined it, they would finish ruining it for him. Sexting, extortion, bullying are all huge predators among our young people. And this is not a unique story. I hear stories that are close to this almost every single day. So we are going from this to this. I want to emphasize what pornography is. Pornography today is not like a Playboy magazine. Pornography is video, and video is what kids are seeing. 56% of all marriages end in divorce because of pornography, whether they're religious or not. One judge told us that nearly every case that came in front of his desk was as a result of pornography. Pornography, which is not even real, it's choreographed, airbrushed, it's easy, it takes no building of relationships, it's instant sex, and no one complains. 88% of pornography is violent. It destroys desire, destroys attraction, emotional and physical involvement, and it objectifies. Girls, and this is one of the things that I am seeing so big, is that girls are becoming submissive and boys more demanding. We're seeing this narcissistic male with the submissive, needy female. And when that's taken into marriage, it's a disaster. I can't even talk about some of the things in this context, in this kind of webinar, that are taking place in sex among our young people. There is so much humiliation and abuse that's taking place among them. This is one pornography website. They post all of their stats. This was their 2018 statistics. Over 4.5 billion hours were spent watching pornography on this one site. 524,000 years, 5,246 centuries, 12.5 videos for every man, woman, and child on the planet. Nearly 100% of our kids will view pornography before they graduate. The average age of exposure is somewhere around 9 years old. Watching pornography is a daily routine for more than 120 million people. And during coronavirus, this particular site offered free membership to a lot of areas, and that saw up to a 68% increase. Well, what I want parents to know, and one thing that I didn't understand, was that pornography targets youth. Pornography wants paying clients. They run algorithms to tell them what kind of pornography paid subscribers were buying. And then they send out free teaser images and video. The paid subscribers are those that generally have been into pornography for a long time, and they're looking for the coarsest material. Pornographers are actually having to make things up to keep subscribers coming back. Their free teaser images are what our kids are seeing. Many accidentally when they are just access the internet, but mostly in targeted locations. What these kids are being exposed to on their very first pornography exposure ends up being some of the coarsest material there is. This creates a huge shock factor in their brain, dumping chemicals that ignite that feeling in the brain. Pornography targets them in many ways. The bait and clip, many of us are seeing that, which exploits the curiosity gap, providing just enough information to make readers curious, but not enough to satisfy their curiosity without clicking through the content. There's free teaser images. Everything that has been made, porn has been made of it. Recently, we've been having coronavirus, so pornography is made of nurses, of Chinese, of rats, or of bats, of shot needles and doctors. With the Black Lives Matter, pornography is made of cops and blacks and slaves and white masters. Everything is linked through what is popular today. Hashtags. Hashtags are how we find things on the internet. If I had a kitchen table I wanted to sell, I would hashtag okay, hashtag C7. Those hashtaggers are using to develop pornography, and they're hashtagging cartoon characters. They're hashtagging your kid's favorite superhero. They're hashtagging and making trailers of the popular movies that they see that look exactly like the movies that they were watching. My grandkids were watching a Tinkerbell trailer with their mother, and the very next video that up on their YouTube Bell trailer looked exactly the same, but it was all of the characters were naked. Ebisco is the schools is a library that a lot of the schools use. Two of my grandchildren got their first exposure to pornography in school in the 2nd grade on a school iPad. Apps such as Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok solicit pornography. Snapchat is the #1 child pornography app. What parents and kids are not understanding, the sharing nudes on these apps is illegal. It's to share an image of anyone who is under the age of 18 is child pornography, even if it's you that is a 15 or 14-year-old that is sharing their old pornography. What kids are sharing today in the form of what they call dating is child pornography. There's a new app that just come out that's called OnlyFans, and it's for kids to be able to share pornography and make their own money off of it. They're coming into the porn industry, porn ready. Kids between 10 and 17 are being targeted on Instagram and other apps through direct messaging. I have a private account myself, and I'm still in private mode. Direct messages are sent in, I've seen them sent into me to connect me with pornography. Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram are where I've talked to kids where they've been exposed to pornography, and where even when they're trying to get out of it, they have a difficult time because of the amount of exposure that is there. It's hidden in games and in gaming sites, and also it's not hidden. We encourage parents to pay for games, because if they don't pay for the game, somebody is paying for advertisement. So free games, somebody's paying for advertisement, and pornographers do that so that when a kid is playing a game, actually swipe ad on the side, it links them to pornography. Pornography can become a very real addiction with kids where they just can't muscle up the willpower to quit. Cell phone addiction, social media, and gaming addictions are just as real. For me, when I learned about this and the pornography addiction cycle and how this all worked, it was a game changer. It helped me understand help, what kind of help maybe would be good for us. This is a cycle that you guys are familiar with, but I just want to quickly go through it. Doctors believed at one time that in order for something to be addictive, it had to be an outside substance that was taken into our body. But once we got a peek into the brain, we saw how addictions actually work. Your brain is equipped with something we call a reward pathway, or a feeling part of the brain. Its job is to motivate you to do the things that will keep you alive, like making you thirsty and keeping your body temperature right. It also is the place where you're motivated to procreate. It rewards you by releasing dopamine and other feel-good chemicals. It's caught in receptors and reused. Dopamine is an anticipatory chemical. It's the high you feel before a game or a date. It's the anticipation of the next thing you are scrolling, or the feel-good of a video game, anticipating what will come next. It's the anticipation for the climax of the stupid cat video or the internet challenge. The higher the feeling good you get is dopamine. The feeling brain is necessary for your survival, but it doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. But in the front of your brain is the thinking brain, and it does. It tells you when to get out of the sun, when to stop eating, and gives you social cues. When one views pornography, the brain is flooded with dopamine. Because of the flood of dopamine, the brain will actually cut back on its dopamine receptors. As a result, what once excited a person then stops having the same effect, and the user has to look at pornography more often, or a more hardcore version. The addiction comes in seeking more than finding. Eventually, as the brain acclimates to this overloaded dopamine, little things that used to make them happy do not make them happy anymore. Well, the dopamine is motivating your brain to do things and rewarding you for doing them. There's a little protein quietly going through your brain, building a trail so you will remember what made you feel good and how to get back to it. This powerful dopamine surge causes this protein to build up. The more the user looks at pornography and continues the behavior, the more it accumulates. Essentially, beating down the brain, building pathways leading back to the high, making it easier and easier for the user to turn back to that behavior whether or not they want it. We count on pathways when we learn new things. When I teach in karate, we count on muscle memory. Kids have more dopamine and 2 to 4 times more protein than adults. I'm going to skip a little bit here because of time. There's a minimum of 1 million online predators given at any given time. If kids think they're posting and no one's watching, they're wrong. Many of them are being befriended by people they don't know, with who don't tell them really who they are. They're being asked for nudes by boys who are persistent, or by adults or other people that are persistent who don't give up. The idea of don't talk to strangers no longer applies. I wanted to end with this quote that was given at a IITAP conference by Matt Fradd. He says, pornography promises us freedom. We become enslaved. It promises intimacy. I can't even, you guys are gonna have to read it because I've got pictures of you right in front of it. Oh, here we go. It promised intimacy. We found only isolation. It promised this excitement. We ended up bored. It promised us all the entertainment, and we have become increasingly juvenile. And I think we're seeing this not even with pornography, but with all of the industry that we're seeing, all of the technology industry and the effects that it's having on kids when they think what they're doing is a good thing. It's become a part of their culture. It's become part of who they are, and they need help to unravel this. And I'm going to just turn the time back over to you guys for questions and whatever you wanted to do with this webinar. I appreciate your attention here today.
Hey, Julie, thank you so much. We've been answering questions as they've come into the chat. A couple of questions that came up were, can people get a copy of the presentation? We recorded today's session. We will get that to you in a replay. If there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll read them out here to Julie. Unless you want to raise your hand here, we can do a live audio. Robin, is there anything you'd like to add as we conclude?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Julie. That was a great visual presentation of a lot of information, a lot of study, and a lot of capturing information from the people that you've talked to and the things you've seen. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thanks to the IITAP professionals for joining us today. If there's anything that we can help your clients with who have gotten serious enough to warrant full-time immersion in treatment, please contact me. While we are a program for young men, I have vast resources and connections for young women and young adults as well. And then we'll just pause to see if there's any other questions, but you can certainly contact us at any time. I hope you have a beautiful day. Stay safe and stay well in this crazy time that we're in. But I look forward to better times. Thanks again, Julie. That was really, really amazing. Thank you.